Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
Jake Ludington here at Up 2011, and I'm with Harold Wong, who is an IT Evangelist for Microsoft. And you were just talking about business processes in the cloud and some of the challenges. What are the challenges that Microsoft is seeing that businesses face as they move some of their processes to the cloud?
Okay, so when you look at just moving anything, so I'm going to kind of generalize a little bit, but moving anything to the cloud is really understanding what you're moving, how it impacts your business. So if you're looking at specifically business process, what can be run out in the cloud from a compliance perspective, that's usually the first challenge. People say security because they don't understand, what can I put there? Is it a secure issue? Is it the communication that needs to be secure? Is it compliancy to make sure that the data that is being accessed is, within regulation for the country they're in, whether it be the EU or the US or whatnot, right? Then the complexity of how that process or that business process is executed, where it sits, in terms of what it communicates with. How does it communicate? Is it communicating with something also in the cloud environment, or is it communicating back into the private data center or on-premise environment? And then you're more talking hybrid and how you secure that communication channel. So what's accessible versus what's not accessible.
And so what do you see as being, because you primarily focus on private cloud, as I understand, and what do you see as being the unique challenges for the private cloud aspect versus people who are trying to move their business processes out into a public service?
Well, for one, there's so much confusion over what private cloud really is. So private cloud, there's the misconception that if I go look at a public cloud offering today, whether it be Amazon or Azure from Microsoft, taking that and duplicating it in-house is not a private cloud. Right? Private cloud is really taking what you already have in terms of your data center and then exposing it to be more efficient, to be more automated, to have self-servicing, a lot of the characteristics that public cloud offerings have today. So if you're looking at challenges between, do I leave it in my private cloud or on-prem or move it out, it really comes down to what makes sense, and is it a workload? Is it something that that requires a lot of rework, right? Because a lot of organizations have spent a lot of time, 10 years, 20 years, refining what they've already built to run on-prem. And if they say, well, we need to move it to the cloud because everybody's going to the cloud, therefore we just have to go there, does it really make sense, right? Look at the workload. Look at what's actually being done. Do you have to re-architect everything? And if it makes sense to move it into that public environment, then absolutely go for it, because it does probably give you greater scale. But if it doesn't make sense and you can just take advantage of what you already have on-prem, whether it be a private cloud or just on-prem data center, servers and services, right, leave it there. Or morph it into a more automated where people can scale that component of it in their private cloud. I know I'm kind of maybe confusing things a little bit, but that's what I'm seeing.
What role does virtualization play in that whole process of making a migration?
Virtualization is key, right? If you look at somebody requesting services, ultimately on the back end, it requires servers. And if those servers are physical servers, it takes time. If I have to go and order an HP or a Dell and there's the lag between the order, the server shipping, being racked, mounted, OS installed and configured, takes days, if not weeks or months. And so if you start virtualizing, it's a matter of spinning up a VM, right? And if I can provision a VM in 2 minutes or in 5 minutes, and I can provision 10 servers, that really is what I need to host an ultimate service or provide the service, and I can do that in 30 minutes, just imagine how quickly I can spin things up as well as break things down, because you don't want things living forever. There's got to be a time limit to some of that stuff. So you want to be able to provision and deprovision quickly. So virtualization is really the first piece that you really absolutely need to have in your environment. And then the management components to make that virtualization efficient and effective.
And you talked a little bit about architecting a solution as being kind of key. And a lot of people have applications that were designed to run on a single server, or maybe they span a couple of servers. But moving that to the cloud doesn't necessarily change the nature of it. So really all you've done is you've moved it from one way of hosting the same thing to another.
Correct. I mean, if I write an application that's meant to run on one server or 2 servers, right, and I choose to move that into the cloud without really rethinking the way it's architected and how it functions, then what's the benefit? If it only still runs on one server and never meant to scale to 15 or 30, why did I move it into the cloud to begin with? Right? It didn't make sense in terms of putting it in the public cloud. So as you look at applications that you want to quote unquote cloudify, it may or may not make sense. You really need to look, what's the intent of that application? How is it used? What do I really want from it? And Microsoft has done the same thing with a lot of our applications, right? When Steve Ballmer said we're all in on the cloud, we are. But does that really mean that we take our entire IT infrastructure, all the applications that have been written over the last 25 plus years, and just move them into the cloud? That's not what happened, right? They actually took time to look at the workload, to look at the architecture, to look at what was built for the on-prem environment, and said, oh, well, it's going to be revised. We're going to have a new version come out. Well, as we start looking at that, let's take a look. What are the benefits? What's the scale we can get in the cloud environment, that public cloud environment? And let's make sure that as we start planning for the next version of that internal app, that we take that into, that we consider that. And we architect and we build appropriately. And that way it's truly cloudified and it makes sense to move to the cloud. Because just forklifting from one server in on-prem to the cloud is just a forklift. It's still going to operate the same way. It's still going to have the same inconsistencies, the same challenges, and so on and so forth.
Does security become any different in the cloud, or are we really talking about like you still need to protect your data and your infrastructure no matter how you look at it?
So people may disagree, but my idea of security, or the way I see it, is if you're going to secure things in your data center and you put them in the cloud, you're still going to secure them in the same way, right? If you're going to secure your data and you don't trust the cloud provider, then you keep that in-house. If you trust the cloud provider because they probably do have better firewalls, they probably have full-time professionals that are focused on security and understand security and can really dig into the security aspect, then you can probably trust them from that perspective. But ultimately, it's a comfort level. So security is big, but it really breaks up into multiple categories. Is it the secure communication channel between the customer and your application? Is it the encrypted security of the data itself? Is it the compliance aspect, which a lot of people lump into security, but I really consider that separate, because compliance is really regulatory. Am I following all the stuff to be PCI compliant? Well, is that really just securing the data? Is it really securing or encrypting the data? No, it's a whole level, a set of processes that must be followed that you have to adhere to. So compliance and security, I think, are two different things, but it's still very, very important regardless of what you're using.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you would want us to know about Microsoft and cloud initiatives?
Well, I mean, when you look at Microsoft, we really do, our marketing term is cloud your way, right? In terms of if you want to do a private cloud, we've got the technologies to help you set up a private cloud and be efficient with it. If you want to go public cloud, we've got public cloud offerings, whether it's Windows Azure, Office 365, whatever that might be. If you want to do a combination of the two and hybrid, once again, we've got the technologies. So, I mean, we see that customers really want things their way. It's kind of like, I don't know if it's allowed, but the Whataburger, right? Isn't that they're saying? Or Burger King, right? Have it your way. It's not, here's 3 choices and that's all you have. It's all everything or none or nothing. We say you have flexibility. You can do it. You can start small. You can go all in. You can have a combination and then slowly move and shift back and forth between the two.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Harold.
No problem. Thank you.
This video has been brought to you by GoToManage. Try GoToManage free for 45 days by entering the code Perillo45.